All right, welcome to the Ware, New Hampshire Finance Committee meeting for Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go forward, I just want to welcome Maria Fasciano to the committee. Carrie Tepper had resigned previously, and then moderator appointed Maria, who was on the committee in a prior year. Some of you are familiar with her. Okay, welcome.
She was a good secretary.
She was.
I just thought I'd put in a plug.
So tonight, we're going to hear from Superintendent Jackie Coe of SAU 24 about John Stark School District and the Ware School District. So, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, okay, that good. I also have Chris Roy with me, a business administrator. So I want to give you a tour. Does everyone have the binder? A tour of the binder before we go through it. The first page with the green and the red is around revenue and adequacy, and Chris is going to speak to that later. You also should have our enrollment, a very colorful page of our enrollment in your packet. The next tab is the John Stark default calculation, followed by a number of handouts around the proposed budget for John Stark. So it starts with the budget overview, which is a document I created that just pulled out everything. I think it's easier to look at it this way. The next one is our function summary of the proposed budget, and then after that is the object. Those are just two different ways to look at the budget from a summary level. And then following that is the full budget with all the lines. After that, the same thing for Ware. You've got the default calculation and then the same series of handouts for the Ware budget. Yes.
Were these budgets approved by the school board, respective school boards, or not?
That happens after public hearing in January.
So is this the same budget that you presented to them some time ago?
We did a budget workshop that you attended, and we have actually, there are some cuts from that, and we talked about those cuts last night at the school board meeting.
I missed that. Thank you.
But it's, it's a process until we get to public hearing when they accept the budget. Okay.
So you anticipate there may be further changes?
Potentially, but no. I mean, I'm presenting we're early in the process, right? And so coming in, I think at one point I came in after public hearing, which is a more firmer budget. But we worked hard to get to a place where we could share with you, I think, where we're at.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'm going to start with the John Stark budget, and I'm going to go through the proposed budget overview, the first page. And my thought was just to go through the changes within each of those, and this is from the object perspective. And then I took all the changes from the full budget and put it on this one page. But you have all the information if you want to dig in. The story kind of the John Stark budget is special education. We have a number of incoming needs with our 9th grade from both Henniker and Ware. And so that population is, we have a net gain of 40 identified students coming in next year. So we're going from, and this is an ever-changing number, but we're going from about 130 students who are identified to 170. So to deal with that and what we talked about in our budget workshop, we are actually proposing 2 teacher cuts in addition to some shifting. So we currently have 4 open teaching positions. They're within math and science, and how we're dealing with that. 2 of those are fully open, and 2 of them are all of our math and science teachers, including the brand-new ones, are teaching 6 classes instead of 5 classes. And so they are getting paid for that 6th class, which constitutes about a full-time teacher. So they have divided it up. It's not great, but this is where we're at, because there's just not a lot of math and science teachers out there. So our hope is to hire a math science and a math and a science teacher next year. And we're going to shift the other 2 positions into special education positions. We had a need this year that we're managing, but we have a definite need next year for those 2 positions. One will be in the life skills program, and one will be as a case manager. And then in addition to that shift, so when we talked in the budget workshop, we actually had a request for 2 additional special education students. We took that out of our request and made the shift over. So in addition to that, when you look and we do our projections for John Stark and our student population, we have about 625 students at John Stark right now. That will go up to around 660 next year. 60?
660.
660. And then it will go back down around 600 is the projection. And so knowing that next year is an anomaly, we think we can handle a 2 FTE cut overall. We have 4 retirements happening, and so we can have this happen, we haven't identified where those cuts are coming from, but we think we can have that happen in a way that doesn't direct, we're not going to riff a teacher. So I've talked about the open positions, the shifting, retirements, FTE cuts. We also we need a number of support staff. Like I said, our life skills program, so students with very high needs. And there's also often para support. And so we actually have an increase, we need 8 para educators. So one of the ways, we have a couple support staff positions that aren't directly connected to student need. We're shifting everyone to connected to student need. Yes?
I'm trying to follow this. I understand the first bullet about the 4 open positions and what you're doing with those.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, there's no financial saving, because you're taking those positions and doing other things with them.
Yes.
Retirement of 4 teachers, that gives you 4 vacant slots. Could you
We're
explain-
going to hire for 2 of them.
And so the next 2 FTE cut in teaching, those are those 2 positions that you're not filling.
Yes, yes. I mean, it might not be that clean, but for sake of this, yes.
And the para-educator positions, that will be an increase in people.
Yes. By 5.
Could you explain that?
So we will have 5 additional people within the support staff contract. We have people doing all sorts of jobs. So we have a library assistant. Next year, we're not going to have a library assistant. We're going to shift the position to a special education position.
So in addition to the 3
We need
people
5 more.
currently employed who will be doing something else next year,
Yes.
you're going to hire 5 additional.
Yes,
And these are for the IEP students?
yes.
Thank you.
Sure. We also, we have been talking about an SAU-wide approach to technology, and this is the last phase of making that shift. So we had been every district, every school kind of had their own technology person. And if you know anything about technology, there's networking and there's the hardware and the software. And so we're doing it from an SAU wide, and so not everyone has to be an expert in networking, and not everyone has to be a hardware expert. And between the team, they go and they meet the needs within the district. This is the final phase of that, and the IT director at the high school is retiring. So you're going to see a cut in that position and all the related benefits to that position, and that's going to shift to contracted services. It is roughly even, because we're also looking at the support position. There's a computer support position that will also come out. And then there's a wage pool for increased raises for those who are not in the collective bargaining agreement. So those make up, yes.
What percentage?
I think we put 5% in. We are playing catch-up in a lot of our wages, and so we don't do wage, it's not across the board 5%. It depends on performance, but budgeting, and, we have done adjustments before with some positions in order, because we don't want to lose people. Any other questions around the salaries? Okay, so within benefits, we have a 10.7 rate increase for our health insurance. I think in the past, some of you will remember me talking about GMR, Guaranteed Maximum Rate. That has gone away, and so this is our rate increase. It means that at least it's a sum certain, but but there were times we came in under our guaranteed maximum rate, which was always nice. And then a 5% dental increase. And then the rate, related benefits, and so when you subtract the cuts, we're at a decrease for both the salary and benefits lines. Purchase services. So a lot of things make up the purchase services. We have the SAU budget, and the district shares for John Stark, and that's a almost $35,000 increase. We have instructional coaches, yes.
In the SAU, how many
Yes.
new positions did you create or fill, and how many did you eliminate?
We did not create any new positions. We have a communications position that we are trying to figure out how the person retired, and we're trying to figure out how to still do the tasks without hiring a person. And so there is a cut within that line, but I didn't zero it out. We've redistributed some of the tasks within the buildings. We have somebody on a stipend who works with us doing some of it. I'm doing a lot of it. So that position, we're still, it's partially in there, but we're contracting some of it for some of the work.
Thank you.
Did any positions get cut? That was the second part of the question. No? Oh, can I ask too?
Yes.
Do you know offhand what the SAU budget % increase was this year over last year?
It was 6.76.
And
Higher?
salary increases were how much of that?
93% of that. The
So 6%.
SAU budget is all salary.
So the salary increases were 6%?
Well, they haven't happened yet, but yes, yes, primarily, we made some salary adjustments. We're also off in some of our positions. You think about human resources, accounting. We aren't competing with other school districts. We're trying to get people from industry. And so we think we're in a good place, but we had to make some salary adjustments.
Why would you want to increase salaries if nobody's leaving?
people have left. We just didn't cut positions.
How many people left during the year?
In our SAU office? So we have had turnover in our HR position over the last 3 years. We've had 3 different people. In our accounting position, we've had 2 different people. Our accounts payable, we have a new person. So we've had quite a bit of turnover in important areas.
And
Payroll, we have a new position.
How many assistant superintendents do you have this year, and how many did you have in the past few years?
Just one.
Natasha's one.
Yes.
And didn't you just hire one? I read
For
something.
next year, after Natasha retires. So July 1, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
That would be amazing, but no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, just one at a time.
Did-
Yes.
Dr. Coe, did you change the description on one of them? My old buggy boo, the community outreach coordinator, did you change that to a grant? Is it have a different?
No, the grants position is, so the assistant superintendent's assistant isn't really a assistant in the way you would think about an assistant. She doesn't do Natasha's calendar. What she does
Okay,
is
so
grants.
that's
what
the
she-
position that changed?
Yes.
And you still
So-
have a community outreach coordinator?
We do not that's the position I was talking about, the communications. We're trying to figure out what to do with that
So if that
position.
stays vacant for a while, is it possible that would,
There is some
eliminated at
savings
some point?
right now. You'll see some savings from that position. We're trying to figure out, it's not filled right now.
okay.
And we're trying to figure out how to do that in a more cost-effective way than hiring a person full-time to do it. So yes. Any other questions about the SAU budget? Okay. We have instructional coaches, 3 instructional coaches throughout the SAU. The instructional coaches is one of the things I am most proud of. It is part of, I think, what has helped us. It is embedded professional development. We have 3 people who will work with a teacher, non-evaluative, and especially so when I think about all the new teachers we've had, they have worked with coaches to say, I want to work on classroom discipline or, management. And the coach will work with them on it, give them some feedback, go back and forth, co-teach for a lesson, help them plan, do all in order to help. We've seen a lot of growth in people. So we have fewer people maybe going out to conferences and more people doing these coaching sessions, which it's a great model. It is something that I think has, they help people with, like we have a new literacy program. They're the experts in our new literacy program, and if a teacher needs support, wants a second set of eyes, and we share the 3 people across the whole SAU. So it's a shared cost across the SAU. So this represents, they get an increase. Then overall, when you look in the full budget, you'll see some pluses and minuses. Overall, within student needs, there's about a $5,000 increase in contracted services for student needs. There was a lot of increases. The proposal that actually we've cut some stuff from within athletics. We've had, sports has grown. We have so much more participation over the last couple of years. I think that's good for the school and good for students. But we had a really, I think, good conversation at the last board meeting around athletic fees, potentially adding a participation fee. So we are in the process of looking at that that you're going to see scattered, sprinkled throughout this budget, a lot of increases. And so ref fees have gone up.
Did that include Mr. Anderson?
I don't know, we,
You're the problem.
so,
You said something, a participation fee.
yes,
That means the student pays money?
yes.
Yeah.
So if I want to join the football team, I have to pay?
Double.
That's actually becoming quite normal
Yep.
because of the costs.
It's
Right.
being proposed normally.
Yes.
It's not a very popular.
No.
You can
It may
really-
not be here, but across the United States, it's
Yeah.
becoming very necessity.
I had it when I was in high school.
Yes.
So it is something it's being explored.
And of course, there would be some,
Scholarship,
yes.
yes. So the computer contracted services is the offset to the salary decrease that I talked about.
Which is greater, the 121,000 or the saving?
I think the 121,000 is,
You said it was kind of level.
it's fairly level. It's where I want to be careful because I don't want to count the computer support two places. So if we didn't have a need for support staff, paras, we would have looked at cutting that computer position, the support position, so I'm just trying to not count double dip and count it twice. It's
You'll also see a savings in Ware School District.
right, about
In
36,000,
Ware School District,
34.
you'll see a savings as well, because the new staff member that we hire in place of the one retiring will be not at the same salary grade.
But I thought the idea of having the computer contracted services was efficiency.
It
That was
is.
the motivation, which means if you were spending $500,000 before, you should be spending $400,000 now. So my question is, not just with respect to this particular number,
Yes,
but overall, is
Yes.
that the case?
yes. I mean, it's not as huge as that, but yes, it is lower. It is also more efficiency. Each school gets the benefit of somebody with net admin experience, database experience.
But overall, if you look at both districts together,
It's a
dollar
savings,
savings.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are athletics, computer, and then the other administrative services, this is the communication costs I was talking about, the community outreach position. So decreasing $5,000 there. And then contracted services within art and music, that was just a decrease in need, so a cut of 900. Property services, there's some ins and outs here around decrease in disposal services, increase in art and music repairs, so increase in needs, and then science decrease, and our security contract, the annual, there was a increase.
How much?
2,000?
2,000.
I think that's, after
2 years,
representing
right.
2 years of,
Yes.
we didn't increase it like as we should have last year, so that's 2 different years of increases.
Are we shopping these things?
We actually are in the process of shopping this particular one. Tom Weston, our facilities manager, has been looking at the contract to determine whether or not it makes sense to go to a different company.
Because we should be looking at this, and we should be looking at health insurance and dental,
Yeah,
because those are increases that are too high, and
you,
there are other options.
we had this conversation at the Ware School Board, and since then we've started the process of looking into that to see what other providers do schools and things of that nature. So more to come on that.
Other purchase services, big increase here, and there's a lot of things in here. And so we are in the process of an RFP for our transportation, bus transportation. We did bids, we received 2 bids. Chris talked about that a little bit last night, but we will accept a bid, I hope, at the meeting when the public hearings happen. And so that new contract, how a new contract works is, it is part of the proposed budget, but is not, the increase is not part of the default. And so that 82,000 will show up on, as part of the delta between our proposed and our default. We also have additional needs within special education transportation. Those connect with our out-of-district placement that you'll see later on this list. Our CRTC transportation, that is the vocational school, the technical school in Concord. We have a lot of students going to that. It's a great program. Those transportation costs are increasing. And also, then you'll see athletic transportation, so that's increased cost, but it's also increased trips. Because we have we have more teams.
And the zero is the erroneous, not the comma.
No. We did have a cut with co-curricular transportation that partially offsets the athletic increase. Lori, your insurance increase?
Excuse me, what
Yes.
is co-curricular if it's not athletic?
All the drama, all the other clubs, theater, concert, music.
Robotics.
The parents travel.
Thank you.
So that's just a lateral shift? There's no savings there?
There's no savings, and it's actually, there's 5,000 more in
Extra.
requests,
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
So we made some cuts around in some the postage, interoffice mail and printing actually should be a cut, right?
That 3,400 is a negative?
It says
No.
decrease.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely supposed to be.
Yes,
It's a decrease?
it's a decrease.
Does the 36% number on the left, do you know if that includes that? I guess it's not going to make much of a difference, but,
That definitely is the right number on the left.
okay, just a
Yes.
missing parentheses.
It's me going back and forth without my reading glasses on the data communication. We are shifting, this isn't the firewall, is it? No,
So
the
there-
firewall is within, this is internet.
Yes, so we are shifting costs from that, we have to get new firewalls. I don't know how often, but semi-often, and to buy a firewall, it's quite expensive. And so we're shifting to a different model with regards to that, and it's an annual cost instead, that's overall less costly. And it's also saving us in places where we needed additional communication, additional internet support. So in this case, there's a little bit of decrease in internet cost and an increase in the cost for the, I'm blanking on the name of it. Do you remember the name of it, Jackie?
It's a hosted firewall.
Yeah.
I can probably
Yes.
explain
I
that.
was gonna ask.
Would you-
Yes,
ask
please.
someone to come to the podium?
Yeah, could you come up just so the people at home can hear you?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I apologize. I'll do that moving forward as well.
Zach Lawson, I'm the chair of the Ware School Board,
No, start.
John Stark School Board, thank you. Been on one of those, not the other, sorry. So speaking somewhat unauthoritatively about this, but I just know a little bit about the territory that we're in and obviously heard it through the budget. Across all the schools in SAU 24, we have always hosted physical things within the building, okay, right? So at the Ware Middle School, at Center Woods, at the Henniker Middle School, Henniker Community School, and at John Stark, there's a literal server rack that has literal equipment in it, okay, right? One of those things is a physical firewall that we use to sort of control traffic to and from the internet. The model we're eventually moving to is not having that infrastructure at every single school, because a firewall is $20,000 or $25,000 each time you buy one of these physical things, plus the service, plus the maintenance, plus all the other stuff associated with it. So moving to a hosted model, what we're trying to do is actually consolidate all of our schools on a single sort of firewall, right, which does all the protection, and going to much less expensive units at each of the physical locations under what's known as like an SD-WAN, or like basically like a private tunneling setup, basically. So they all still use their own internet connections, but they go through this cloud-based firewall for all the protection. At the end of the day, regardless of any of that technical stuff, it's cheaper to do it that way rather than spending 25 grand rubber stamped at each one of these things, which has been sort of the mode that we've used in a multi-district SAU sort of situation.
More
you know.
effective.
More effective as well, yes, yeah. And it hasn't, I mean, and in fairness, it really hasn't been much of an option until, say, 2018, 2019 in reality, so we're taking on advantage of it now.
So why is there a cost if this is supposed to save money?
So we are due to replace the firewall at John Stark now, so rather than replace the firewall with another firewall, there is a cost associated with the firewall project, if you will, to start moving in this particular direction. So that's what this cost is accounting for at John Stark. Rather than spending it on a brand new $25,000 firewall, this is the solution that we're moving towards.
So instead of spending whatever the number.
Yeah, whatever the number is, yeah.
$25,000 per school, you're gonna spend $3,800 per school.
That's why I said unauthoritatively, it's less. I don't know what the specific costs are at each of the schools. I can just speak to what the model is that we're moving towards.
So if we didn't spend this $3,800, we would have had to spend $10,000.
Some much higher number. That's correct, yes, yep.
But this is a subscription-based model?
Yes, so that's the function that the firewall typically provides when it's physically installed does packet tracking and it prevents traffic from coming inbound. We're hosting that portion of it in the cloud, okay, right? But we've got a dedicated connection from our on-prem stuff to that particular stuff in the cloud.
That's where the tunnels come in.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
This new model in the cloud is usually, there's an upfront installation cost, equipment, and then there's a monthly recurring subscription that goes on after that for.
That's actually been the traditional cost.
Yep.
Even with the physical appliance, you pay for some 3 to 5 year subscription for updates and all the other stuff. And while we will still have some variety of that for the hardware that we do keep on-prem, the hosted firewall I don't know that there's an install cost associated with it. There's a cost annually associated with that particular item.
Tom, or you may be able to answer it, Zach. If there's a hiccup with this, the people that are the firewall people, this company, it's their problem to fix it. We're not
that's right.
having people in the schools struggling with
I mean,
it.
that's just a general thing that comes with sort of, moving things into the cloud.
Great.
And I'll let Lee be the one that speaks about this with all of us over time, but, the more we push to the cloud, yes, we get more of that. There are some considerations that we have to address around student security, and the nature of what it is that we do and what the great state of New Hampshire has allowed for us to put in the cloud and not put in the cloud, right? So we're trying to think about it creatively from a cost management standpoint and from a personnel standpoint and all of those other kinds of things, and this is just one such move in that direction.
Does this have anything to do with whether students can access porn at school or something?
Yes and no. Firewalls are just sort of basic. Think of it like everything in the computer world is layered. So this is sort of like at a layer where like the roads are and that kind of stuff, okay, right? Like traffic in and out of the building, just pure and simple, right? Managing that. Managing what the students have access to and what they don't have access to is a function of not just that device, but a whole other system that we use that's part of the Chromebook devices that we give all of the students,
So
right?
not part of this $3,800?
Not part of, it's a completely separate associated item that we use. I'm going to fade back into the,
Thank you. And so then the out-of-district placement, out-of-district tuition, we actually have roughly the same number of students in out-of-district placement. I think we have around 8 right now. Again, that is always a number that is in flux. But there are higher needs, and so more expensive needs. Yes.
Doesn't the state contribute something towards this?
There is something that used to be called catastrophic aid. And so I think it's about 70,000, when a student's, the cost of educating a student costs a district more than 70,000, the additional money, we're supposed to get reimbursed for that.
Next year?
Well, yes, next year, the following year. And so that in the past has been fully funded. I mean, there have been times when it's been fully funded. We're eligible for anything above They are currently, in this budget now, reimbursing at 67%, because the pot didn't grow,
They underfunded
but the
it.
needs have. So we won't get 100% reimbursed beyond the 70. We'll get 67% of that.
I thought that the district, both districts had made a strong effort over the past years to have these students helped within the district
Yes.
rather than sending them out of district at a great cost.
Yes.
Is that not,
Nope, that's absolutely true.
but
And,
these students cannot be
yes,
helped in the district?
right. We are not the least restrictive environment for them. We do make every effort. Our numbers of out-of-district placement are lower than a lot, than the average, than a lot of our neighboring districts. But yes, it is better for the student, it is better for the taxpayer if we are educating our students in district. And so we do that whenever is absolutely possible. There are some things that are out of control, are out of our control. There are people who, move into the district who were already in an out-of-district placement. And so, we inherit the plan. There are, foster students and like, there's a lot of, every student has a different story.
So you're talking about 8 students, but it could be 10 or 6 come September 1st.
Yes, absolutely. It could be none, or it could be 20. I mean, I don't,
But this is known.
yes.
These are students who, unless they move out of the district, will be our responsibility next year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Going into the supply lines, last year we did, I think about $22,000 in cuts within the curriculum supply lines. And we realized we need some of that back, and there were more. So we're requesting 8,700, across there. You'll see pluses and minuses within the curriculum lines. There are also special education supplies. It's a program we're buying, a progress monitoring tool within special education for $4,676. And then we made some cuts within general supplies, board supplies, and ground supplies. Within property, there's athletic replacement equipment and a decrease in general equipment. And then within others, which is a lot of our dues and fees, with the increase in athletic participation, we have increased dues and fees. The computer dues and fees, we purchase a lot of our programs at the SAU level to take advantage of, the doing the buying as a SAU, and then we do chargebacks within dues and fees. And so a lot of those programs, have increased. And so the cost of those software licenses, that's the chargeback. Other admin services, that is actually our graduation, putting on graduation. There are some expenses with that have increased. And then decreases, the debt schedule, NEASC is our accreditation. I remember, I think, talking to you about that increase, and now we're taking it out because we don't need it this year. Yes?
Can I just, and this is probably in here somewhere, but the debt schedule decrease,
It's our boiler project.
is there a digit missing?
It is
I think it's the cost.
$2,243.
Oh, okay,
Extra comma.
thank you.
Good catch.
And so NEASC, co-curricular dues and fees decrease, and special ed dues and fees decrease, and general dues and fees. And then offsetting the interest, we're paying more on principal. So that gets us to an overall, 2.6 increase in the John Stark budget. Yes.
Would Chris be able to send me a complete copy of the default budget, line by line?
It's on the website, right?
I think last year we met to discuss it. I'm willing to do that again. Yeah. I don't do it in the same way I did it in the past. This is kind of how I have it spit out, but I'm glad to do that again.
Quick question. Are
Yes.
these default and proposed, are they bottom line?
Yes.
They are. Okay.
This presentation was very helpful.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
good.
good.
Thank you.
Doing it in this manner,
Okay.
just the right way to do it with
Okay.
us.
Thank you. Well, I don't know how much detail, so that's good. I appreciate it.
100,000 feet is just right.
Are we ready for where then? Okay.
Ooh, before you do,
Oh,
can I just have, what's the status of the teacher's contract?
thank you. Yeah, I had that note. So we are, I'm hoping we're finalizing that today.
Yes, there's still time.
And so once that is officially TA'd, we can share it out, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm sharing a bunch of stuff with you, hopefully by the end of the week. And we will put that in the folder that I share.
This is for John Stark.
John Stark.
Start teacher's contract.
So we could start with the support staff contract if you wanted. I will put that contract in. It was primarily wages. We did a little work around professional development for our support staff, building some skills they asked for, and we agreed to provide some support. It's not in there, but to provide some support for people who wanted different certifications. We have like specialized behavioral paras and things like that. So we put a little bit of money in for that support. And then in general, we added $1 an hour to the salary grid. And so that cost, year one, is $153,204, and year two is $102,500.
Where are they currently?
16? Oh. It would be I'm,
Two starts currently at 16, and so it would go to, para 2 would start at 17 in the first year and start at
18.
in the second year.
and para 2 is where most of our paras get to. There's a certification through the Department of Ed that we want. And so we really work with people to get to that para 2. There is a para 1 rate, which is $15 an hour the first year and $15.50 the second. We've strongly incentivized the para 2 cert, and so that's mainly we concentrate on that because most of our paras are para 2.
So you pay for them to get training,
Yep,
certification, and then you pay them more money.
yes.
Isn't it usual in many professions that if you want to go to a higher level, you pay for your own training?
Not in education. It hasn't been
So you pay for a teacher to go from a bachelor's degree to a master's degree?
we do pay tuition reimbursement for courses, yes.
For the whole degree?
Not for the whole degree.
Each contract has different language.
Right.
Associated with credit reimbursement, basically. It's a credit reimbursement model.
It's pretty typical across school districts.
And we want the additional training.
Yes.
The la-
You can demonstrate that the additional training results in higher test scores?
For our support staff, not
No,
necessarily.
teachers.
For, when we have a well-trained teaching staff that stays with us, yes. The retention is huge. We invest in people, and I think we see, I mean, we have a lot of, especially at John Stark, we have a lot of highly qualified teachers who have been with us for a long time, who have, gotten their masters. So, I mean, yes, I think that is part of,
But you have some sort of statistical or other kind of a study which demonstrates that the teacher with a master's degree improves student test scores. That's the question.
yeah. I mean, I do think there is some research around there. I don't think it's not a straight line. But a teacher who continues to hone their skills is more effective in the classroom. And a master's degree in itself, somebody doing a master's degree that they dial it in and do the master's degree is not the same as somebody who's honing their skills and applying that in the classroom. So the people who do that, who continue to be learners, I value having those teachers in our classrooms.
Thank you.
Is this going to be, or has it already been placed so you can read the contract and the table and that? Is it online access? Because I know a couple days ago it was the old contract that was online, not the new.
The support staff,
Yes,
that will be up
yeah,
before the end of the week.
okay.
Go ahead.
I'm almost there.
Because we're under, so when you look on our website, it won't be on our website, it won't be under HR because we're currently under the current contract,
Yeah.
but it'll be in budget information.
Well, that's what
Yes.
I was looking
Yep.
for it, but
Yep.
the old one is still in budget information.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, we should fix that.
That's- Yeah, yeah. Next, the last contract, it was a
Yes.
2-year contract.
Yes,
And we were going through the problems of, we couldn't fill the positions. You had a contract out for some positions. Where does that stand today? Where you got that contract approved, were you able to hire and fill without having the contract out?
we have had some particular skilled areas that we've contracted out, but we have brought a lot more back in. I think we've got 1 or 2,
I
three.
think there's some contracted services specifically in Ware that are covering a couple of needs. But to Dr. Coe's point, we are bridging the gap from how many openings we had at one point.
Okay. And have you had, with the current pay scale, have you had people leaving because they're not paid enough?
It's more because they need benefits.
Right, because I know, yeah,
Yeah.
the Ware School contract
Right.
does not have benefits.
We
with the
are,
sports staff.
we are fairly competitive. This keeps us in the ballpark for wages. Not
Yeah.
having retirement, not having health care puts us at a disservice. But we're
But
finding
but
people
at the
who,
current pay level, you're able to fill these positions pretty much.
we are
Better than you were
doing
before.
much better than we were, yes. Yes, and not having to rely on contracted services for as many
If you don't get
positions.
this, if they don't support it, get this contract approved, you haven't had people saying, well, I'm walking out the door.
We're not at the same level we were at
With the
the
teacher's
last
contract.
contract or the teacher's contract.
Teacher's contract, which was, yeah,
It will be harder.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
And
okay.
it could be more expensive, I'm not trying, I don't want to exaggerate, but it will be harder. We will end up with more contracted services probably, because those are needs we have to fill.
But we're sitting here
Yep,
faced
absolutely.
with huge
Yep.
Potential increases that I think you're
Right.
going to talk about later.
Yes, with
and-
adequacy.
And other things, and we have to sit and say to the taxpayers, who had an 8+% increase
Mm-hmm.
one year and another 8% last year, and say, at least give them recommendations to say, if you have all this, if you approve all this stuff, here's what it's going to be, and we'll give you some suggestions, and maybe if you cut this and you say no this year to this, then we try to give them
Yeah.
options, so.
No,
I'm
I
trying to get a
understand
feel
that.
for, if you don't get it, what happens? You know,
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get a feel for.
Right.
It's a 2-year contract. Could I get how much money we're spending on contracted people, please,
Yes, it is in the,
somewhere?
it's in the budget.
If I were there, where would I go?
Yes.
It would be within special contract, if there was other
Right.
stuff in there.
Okay.
but I can
Is it the regular ed one?
It's the contracted services special ed. But yes, how about we follow up with
That
that?
would be great, thank you.
Because if you look under special ed, contracted services, there are a number of things that make up that, including like our speech language, right? Or is that-
There's
is that a
there's
separate? That's a separate, okay. Okay,
Do you have a printout of the support contract details with you, that we could make copies of, or is that still?
let me send you tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, I do have it if you wanna.
Well, not the whole contract, but I mean like a one-page or some kind of a, is there a summary
There's a table there.
being produced, like the table's in the contract?
Yeah, it should be. The last one was.
Yeah,
There
Oh,
it is,
yeah.
there it is.
yeah. I mean, I think it's probably easier if I just send it
Yeah, we can-
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
email's probably easier. Since we're not going over the contracts, there may be some follow-up questions. in the
I
future.
figured.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready for the where budget? Okay, and so the where budget, we are looking at a 6%, 6.08% increase. Within the salary line, we've got $672,253. That includes 2.5 paraeducator positions connected to student needs. It includes a CODA, which is like an occupational therapist assistant. This is actually a position we had to hire, or we're trying to hire right now, to meet the needs of some IEPs. And it's the second year of the WEA contract, an additional wage pool for non-collective bargaining folks, our administrators, our custodians, our secretaries. Yes.
Percentage?
I put 5% in there too.
Thank you. And could you tell us how much of the $672,000 increase is
300 some.
is a result of the collective bargaining agreement that was approved by voters last year? So this is the second year of
About
that.
360.
672, how much is it?
Like 368, was it?
About 360 in the, that was in the warrant article, though, that the estimate was going to be about 360,000 in year two.
I think we are closer to, Christie, 420?
Oh, okay,
in salary, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the other 250,000 is for what?
Increases in,
Education?
yep,
The CODA
yep,
420 because they have
and the wage pool?
teachers.
yes.
That's 250,000. What is a para, how much does a para cost?
We budget 35, 25? Okay.
With
20 for salary.
25? So that's about 62. And the occupational therapist?
Is 35, is that, it's in 30, so,
It's split over 2 lines.
so on page 2 of the contract, in the middle of the page, we are budgeting, we have a current occupation, it's about $30,000.
So.
We
60
currently have somebody,
So 65,000 for the paras, 30 for that, that's 95. And 60
Well, the,
is 155. So the second year of the Ware Education CBA, that's already the 420. So where's the other 105?
I can
You want to talk to them?
I was just gonna say, I can give a breakdown, a better breakdown. I don't have that prepared.
Thank you.
We also have increases within the same healthcare increases and dental increases that we talked about in Stark. And so that equals almost 500,000, the 479, 498. Yes,
For John Stark, you had bullet 1, bullet 3, and bullet 4, but not bullet 2.
yes.
What is 12% ABO health insurance rate increase?
We have an additional health insurance at where that is not in the John Stark contract. And so there's an option that where teachers have that John Stark teachers don't.
So those teachers.
It's just a different health plan. Yes,
So some teachers have the Luminous
yes.
and some have.
And they have
AB
different
20.
rate, yes. And one's a high deductible plan and one's a more traditional healthcare plan.
Thank you.
As a quick aside on benefits, the last contract that the teachers got, they had that provision where they were gonna get their health care after they retire.
Yes.
They had about a 10-year, and it was gonna be limited to 2 per year. Do we know how many people are in that
We
program?
do know, is it 3?
Or if you don't, if you
We'll
can't
follow
answer
it
now,
up. It hasn't
I'll-
been 2 every year, but
I'll send, okay.
okay. I'm making my list. I knew there'd be a list of questions. Retirees. Okay. We ready for purchase services? Again, the SAU shares, our student needs, those contracted services are an increase of 39.4. Instructional coaches again, and the athletic officials, the same increase. We've got less games at the middle school. Made some cuts in, we had some money budgeted within our district meeting. Those don't cost as much anymore. And then this is the 33.9 is the information technology savings that I talked about.
And so, just to make sure we
Yes.
got this straight, putting Stark together with Ware, because
Yes,
both of them are on my tax bill.
yes.
This is a net decrease,
This is a net decrease, yes.
not just Ware is saving, but the taxpayer and Ware is saving.
The taxpayer and where is
Both Ware
savings,
and Stark.
yes,
Thank you.
yes. You know, it's not a lot, but yes, it is a savings. Property services, we figured out our annual maintenance costs with Ware Middle School, just the things that need the regular repairs. We were under budgeted for it, and so that's the increase. Another savings of our technology model is we have more skills to repair our computers, and so the computer repair line is another decrease with that model, and then also just music and fax. We're actually not running a true kind of fax program, family and consumer science at the middle school right now. We're looking to kind of build it into a wellness program within PE and health. It's really hard to find fax teachers, and that was one of the cuts, part of what we put together last year when we made the 4 cuts. The projected new contract, we've got an increase here. So same as I talked about at John Stark, this is part of the proposed, not part of the default, this increase. We've got the same property and liability insurance increases. the top of the next page, there's an increase for transportation for field trips at Centerwoods, and then decreases within special education transportation. McKinney-Vento transportation, McKinney-Vento is the law that governs homeless, how we work with students who are homeless. And one of the things we do, and are mandated to do, is if a student is homeless, we support transportation. So if they end up needing to double up in a house in Manchester, in order to create continuity of services, we do transportation from Manchester to Ware. Sometimes we split that cost with Manchester, sometimes we don't. We work with the families, but this is all federally and state mandated.
How much does it cost per trip?
Oh, sometimes a lot, but we try to do it.
$600?
Well, that is the outset. That's sometimes a specialized transportation.
But not for this.
I mean, maybe sometimes, yes.
Back and forth to Manchester for $600?
I tell you, this is my retirement gig, Neil.
I'd retire now on those kinds. And there's no other way to do that for less money?
We double up if we've got multiple people.
How about hiring an Uber?
There are districts that do that. Manchester, I'm sure, does that.
Because Uber wouldn't be $600 to Manchester.
Right. Well, it depends on the child and the needs of the child.
But Neil, are you gonna put your middle schooler in an Uber with a strange adult? Like,
Neil, the conversation that we have pretty regularly over this based on student need is whether we are going to completely or partially insource some amount of student transportation. But every time we go through that conversation, we have to understand, like, do we wanna manage a fleet of vehicles? How do we wanna handle that, okay? So we're not just forking over the $600 and glad that we're doing it. There is a conversation that's going on all the time. While I'm not sure how seriously Uber has come up in that conversation, like, we're amenable to those kinds of ideas, just to be clear about that, right?
Thank you.
The data and communications, there's some savings in Ware. We did some cutting around postage and printing, and there's a decrease in out-of-district tuition on the Ware budget. Moving into supplies, the big supply thing here is we're looking for a middle school science program. And so the increase is a $21,000 adoption increase.
she's gonna vacuum.
Oh, okay. Yes.
How long have we been on the current science curriculum?
I was assistant superintendent when we adopted that, and so I think it must have been 7 years ago that we did that adoption. And so we continue the language arts books. There's some wear and tear with some of the books, some subscription increases within library, a request to buy some more library books, and school counseling. We have a program that we use within advisory, a social emotional learning curriculum. There's a school counseling module that we'd like to adopt. And then, there are a number of small cuts in other areas of supplies, and a slight increase within nursing supplies and ground supplies. So we really try every year to look at what we need. We do this, this is the part of the budget that we have the most discretion over, and we do it kind of from a zero-based model, building up. And it's never just, this is what we had last year, this is what we're going to take this year, especially within the lines that we have more control over.
On the Character Strong school counseling model, this isn't special ed.
Nope.
So are we counseling when people could be getting counseling under their insurance?
No, it's not, I don't think it's at that level, no. You know, the school counseling, it is not the same as if you were going to therapy, or we have students, you know, who do go to therapy. It's not a replacement,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, that was supplies. And then within property, some decreases in new equipment within the music program. I think they had asked for something specific last year, and we don't need to buy that again. And computer instruction equipment, same thing, and then student services equipment, same thing. We bought what we needed last year, don't need to buy it again. We are at Centerwoods, as we're trying to budget to replace parts of that playground every year. And so we've had to take things as they get unsafe, as kids are playing on it and they need repair or they need to be replaced. We've taken a lot of things off the playground. We're trying to slowly make sure we have a full playground. Sorry, I lost my place. And computer replacement, that's our Chromebook replacement, and then our other, computer replacement equipment. And the last thing, that is the cost of an auto scrubber.
Is that a car wash?
Yes, kind of.
I think it's short for automatic. I spoke with our facilities director today, and he explained that we typically will have 2 of these devices. Currently, we are down. One of them is completely out of commission, and we're just using
What does
one.
it do?
It cleans the floors.
Yeah.
It cleans the floors. So it's.
You push it on
I don't know if any of you are Sam's Club customers, but they have the one that roves around Sam's Club and cleans the floor and beeps at you. It's similar to that. So having these devices makes it.
Auto.
Somebody drives this one, or is it automated?
I don't know that.
It's not automated.
Automated in some
Somebody
way.
is there
Yeah,
with it, I've
it's
seen
not the Sam's Club one in particular, but that was just my example.
it. Zamboni, yes.
But getting the job done quicker and more efficiently with stuff like this makes it so that we have less hours with custodial staff. So currently we're using one, and the typical model would be 2.
Could we live with just one?
Yes.
We're currently living with just one.
And then the last are, again, our dues and fees. Some student service dues and fees increase, slight increase with library dues, the same computer dues and fees that we talked about at John Stark, school board dues and fees for New Hampshire School Board Association, and then the interest on the debt service decrease. Questions about the WARE budget?
Can I just ask a quick question about books?
Yes.
So, the kids are getting Chromebooks. Are we giving them physical books too? I haven't been in
Yes.
school in a
Yeah,
very long time.
yes. Some, yes.
Okay.
And a lot of them are used in the classroom, but especially this new reading program, we have a lot of books.
Okay, so you're not,
It's
they're not
we're-
using the Chromebooks
all
to
day
read
long,
books?
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
That was actually part of the appeal of the program we went to.
Okay.
You have some questions, I've gotten some questions around class size, and want to talk about that a little bit. So we are currently, I mean, you have the breakdown of, per grade. We are currently between 18 and 21 students per class, K through 8. And we, next year, anticipate being anywhere between 18 and 24 per class. Our 7th and 8th grade, We currently have 120 students in our 8th grade, and we have 6 teachers. Next year, we'll have 76. It's a wild turn. And we need 4 teachers. We have the 4 subjects in that model, and so that's a 19 per class. And then currently in 7th grade,
Excuse me, I only have things going up to 2024. Am I missing something here?
that's our October 1 enrollment.
But you're talking about next year, and that data is not here.
Right, because, I mean, that's not official data. So what we do,
Could you give it to us?
If you look at the 7th
You
grade
move 'em.
She's
this
looking at
year,
the 8th grade,
will be the
7th
8th grade
and
next year.
6th grade.
that's all we do with it.
The only new one coming in will be kindergarten coming in and 8th grade popping out.
Shift everything down, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, that is just the official one, but yeah, I could do that if, and so in our,
It would be nice to have something.
The
official that
spreadsheet I'll
shows
share with
expected
you.
class size next year,
The-
by grade.
the spreadsheet I'll share with you that I shared previously with you has that, so.
Thank you.
And so, we're in 7th grade, we're currently at 76, and we're expecting to be at 96 next year. And we've got 4 teachers at 7th grade, we're gonna keep 4 teachers, and so that'll bump, those class numbers up to more like 24 per class. And the rest, we shoot for 20 students per class. So that's where we are with staffing. Any other questions?
This chart will show the number of teachers
Yes,
and the number of students by grade.
Yes.
So five third grade teachers for 125 students is 25 students a class.
yes.
Thank you.
What's that
Do you-
noise?
She's what?
Do you have any data that you could supply us that shows the relationship between the number of children a teacher has in her classroom and some objective measurement such as test scores or something else? Make the case, which is what the school district does, that a smaller class size is beneficial.
You would like some data on that?
Yeah, because,
Okay.
As we've had this discussion over the years, there was a time, especially in parochial schools, when the nuns would have 40, 45 children per class.
Right.
They did pretty well. Different era, different children, different parents, different economics.
Right.
But is there some data that suggests today that a class size of 20, greater than 25, has a deleterious impact on students' educational attainment, however you want to measure that?
Okay.
It's something that would satisfy those of us who think that class size could be increased, the number of teachers reduced, and the saving to taxpayers.
The bar is I have to satisfy you in that? The bar is I need to satisfy you in that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I will try.
Can I ask one question there, Neil? You've been doing this a long time, so you know that it isn't the difference between 25 students and 18 students per class, or 25 and 32. But oftentimes, particularly at the K through 8 level, comes down to how many units of a particular grade level can we actually run, and that's gonna dictate.
What do you mean by unit?
So, okay, so there, I don't know how it works and where, but in Henniker, it's very typical for us to have 2 8th grade classes, or 2 6th grade classes, okay? To add when you get to a student class size of in the mid-20s, let's say, right, okay, or in the high 20s, that's when we have to start talking about adding a 3rd teacher. Now, what that does is it drops it well below that number that you're sort of thinking about. So our economies of scale, if you will, in Henniker and Ware, aren't how do we control class size to 25 or 18. It's like, how many units of a particular class are we going to run? That's typically what we're sort of looking at and addressing to determine where the class size falls. It's not to avoid giving you the answer you're looking for, but what I'm saying is regardless of what that shows us, we're still kind of pinned up against the wall or painted into a corner in terms of what our class sizes will be based on the units that we will run for a particular class. Now, at the high school level, it's a different sort of economic or different calculus. We're talking about course offerings, right? Course offerings dictate, outside of your mandatory classes, your English classes, your math classes, the state requirements. When we're talking electives, we choose not to run certain classes if interest is not there. So that might be closer to the mark of what you're thinking of with our determination on what we will use for class size, determining whether we're going to run the class or not, or how we're going to deploy our teacher resources and all of that, okay? But I want to make sure that this organization, this group knows that from the conversations that happen at the K through 8 level.
I'm very confused by your use of the term unit. Could you help me?
So,
Classroom.
classrooms, how's that? So we're gonna run 2 8th grade classes, or we're gonna run 3 8th grade classes? Or we're gonna run 2 2nd grade classes, or 3 2nd grade
Don't you
classes?
consider the economic impact and the educational impact?
Certainly, but what I'm trying to point out to you is, that conversation happens when the student class size gets to like 30-something students. Now, when you add that third class, the effective class size of the 3 classrooms drops below what you would consider to be, a low class size. So what I'm trying to get at is we push that limit as much as we can.
But I'm talking about the reverse here.
You're talking about shrinking it.
Yes.
I appreciate that, but what I'm saying is when you shrink just one unit, one class of a 2nd grade or 3rd grade or 4th grade classroom, now you're at a level that's too high. And if your point is, we could deal with 35 students in a classroom, I will disagree with you about that all day long.
Right.
All day long, okay?
This is the information I'm looking for. And I don't know if it exists, that a class of 30 does just as well as a class of 25, or a class of 25 does just as well as a class of 22.
It won't break down like that. I promise you that you will not find that the data breaks down that way. We will do it. But what I would also like to say, out of respect for where you're coming from, the solution isn't to try and control the number of instances of the 2nd grade or the 3rd grade that we run. If you want to be serious about this, let's talk about what we can do between Henniker and Ware to combine our middle schools or our grade schools so that we can effectively do what you're talking about, right? That's a much better way to solve that problem than micromanage the number of units or the number of classes that we run between the kindergarten and the 8th grade.
I don't understand how combining them would
So if you've got
change the issue.
Yes, you do. Of course you do. So the point is, if you take, because you're asking the question already. I can't. Yeah. So if you've got, I can't do the math quick enough in my head here, Neil. But the point is, between our 2 schools, if you've got 5 classrooms of the 5th grade running between Henniker and Ware, okay, right? When combining those 5 classrooms together, you might wind up with only 4 effectively across the 2 towns. Does that make sense? Right, so if you want to be serious about controlling, personnel cost, i.e. teachers' cost, you will not get there by trying to increase class size. That becomes deleterious, as you're saying. If you really want to do it, talk about how you can get more jammed in between these 2 towns together.
Don't you have the exact same problem in either of the situations?
So I will tell you,
The question is
no.
class size.
It is, but
It's easier to do it if you have a larger number of students.
you are, I think what you're doing is overlooking the order of magnitude that it takes to do that. Henniker has, how many students are in Henniker? 400? Yeah, 400 students in the community school. It's K through 8, okay? With only the addition of 60 more students to that, okay, it changes the entire dynamic of the class size math that you're talking about, and it also changes the cost per pupil to something where it goes from being on the very high end of cost per pupil to being on the very low end of average. It doesn't take many students to do that, is my point, okay? So if you really sit down and look at the way in which you could control big costs, let's say a teacher in the K through 8 realm, when it's all said and done, between salary and benefits and the whole 9 yards, is pushing $100,000 for all practical purposes, okay? If you really want to do that, you have to consider combining and finding that opportunity with larger class size. You're not going to get there with just Ware or just Henniker or just John Stark. You're going to be dealing with larger populations of students to be able to manage that more effectively.
You're absolutely correct. It would be easier if you had more, but it is possible with fewer.
If you wish to run class sizes with over 30 students, and that is my point from before. I
But we
would,
need to see what the class sizes would be. For example, in 5th grade, if you eliminate, I don't know how many classes there are now. If you eliminate one class so that you have, instead of 5, you have 4, what's the...
it's not that number. If you have 2 and you've got 25 per, you have 1 class with 50 students in it, Neil.
But we have 5 classes in Ware.
No, No, I said you have 5 between Henniker and Ware. I made that number up. I don't know how many it is. Well, I know we have 2 in Henniker. How many do we have in Ware? You have 5 in Ware? Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is, if we had, right now we have 5 classes with 5 teachers. What would happen if we had 4 classes with 4 teachers? What would the student population go up to? And is that within an acceptable limit? What are the consequences of that to student education?
Right.
And obviously to the taxpayer.
Yep.
I think this is more for Jackie, but she
Fair
can
enough. No,
certainly-
no, that's fine.
I don't know if you can do this, and it's not a popular question. We are required to have special ed kids in regular classes.
Yes.
I would be curious to see the correlation of the number of sped kids to the number of non, as to how they do in their classes. Because I'm curious to see if you have a class, we'll say we have 2 history classes, and one history class has, we'll say, 3 sped kids, and the other class has none. I would be very curious to see what that correlation is to learning and test classes, because I have a curiosity as to whether there is an issue there. And I'm not picking on anybody.
Yep, no, I understand, and I think it is, so there is such a wide range of reasons why someone is identified, right? And so we are charged with creating the least restrictive environment for each individual student's needs, somebody with an IEP. And so sometimes the least restrictive environment is not in the regular classroom. Sometimes it's an out-of-district placement. Sometimes it's in resource rooms and programs that we've developed within the school for part of the day, for all of the day. Most of the time, for most of our students, their learning and their specialized instruction, which is what their team has determined they need in order to make the same achievement as a student who is not identified, happens right in the classroom. And we do have students who meet their IEP goals and are no longer identified. So I think maybe when I was in school, students who were identified had a lot of needs. And that isn't necessarily the model now. We have students who have IEPs who have very targeted learning goals that we need to address for them. It doesn't necessarily, and I don't know what kind of needs you're picturing when you think of a student who's identified. But like, I think most of our students do just fine, students who are identified and students who aren't identified in the classroom. And it is legally what we're obligated to do. But again, I can
guess
go
my
back and look
question
at my research.
Is this, I understand the legal repercussions. But I also know if you have somebody that's making noise in class,
Yep.
clapping their hands, bouncing a ball, that is a distraction, any more than if I came to your school board meeting and I started doing that, you would like me to cease and desist. And while it may be legally required, I have to look at how does it affect the other portion of this, because that is a big question, and does that affect the test scores? And I don't know how you
Yep.
figure that
Yep.
out, but it is a question.
Okay.
And I'm very curious about that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm done.
You done? Okay.
There's a ramification to this, and Lori's making that point. We have educational freedom accounts in this state. Most of the students so far who opted for that program were already in private schools.
Yes.
So they were getting tuition assistance from the state budget. But if there is a perception along the lines that Lori is talking about among parents that one of the consequences of integrating students with IEPs into the classroom, that's having an adverse impact on their education. A lot more parents will take their children out of public school and put them in private school. And then the proportion of IEP students to non-IEP students will increase very substantially, and it will have a snowball effect. And
Right.
we're not at the tipping point yet. I don't know how near we are, but this is a very important question, and I don't know how you folks address it because there's a legal issue here.
Right.
But
Well-
one of the consequences could be a very significant change, which has all sorts of ramifications for the wholeness of America, when too many children are not educated in a common public school environment.
We are deviating from finance and getting into politics here, guys. Like, I with all due respect.
It does affect the
No,
taxpayers.
there's no question that's the case. I
You're
respect.
you're correct.
I respect where you're coming from in all of this. You've hit the nail on the head with the political problem, which is that we're legally obligated to do this. Jackie's right, like, we are oftentimes finding ourselves having to solve problems creatively, given that this is the case. If you really want to know the straight story on this, do any of you have students in our schools here at all right now? Anybody in this room?
Grandkids, they count?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Talk to the teachers, okay? Have them tell you what a day in the life is like within the classroom, and that'll give you the perspective that I think that you're looking for, okay?
Yeah.
From a broad standpoint, like, we are doing what we can within the realm of the legal ramifications of what you're talking about.
Can I get back to a finance question?
Please.
Hey, if I, the student population, that's good. If I sent something up by email, would I be able to get how many classrooms per?
I have a form, I think I shared with you last year that I'm going to update,
Okay,
that
that'd be
has,
Because what I was looking at was, and you talked about it, you got a large bubble, you got 120 kids at the 8th grade level. They
Yeah.
leave.
yes.
The next one coming in is 76. And then you got probably 90 kindergartners coming in at the bottom level, you know, that, you know. I don't
That's
know
what we're guessing, yes.
Kindergarten classes, so we're at 90 and we probably have 5,
We do have 5.
okay? But I don't see where,
But-
under salaries, where there's a cut in a teacher position at all. I mean, if you got 120 going out the door at the 8th grade level, you're not gonna need as many, you only got 76 gonna be in the 8th grade next year, right?
Right. And we have other,
So you're not
Right.
Are you reducing a teaching position at all next year? I didn't see it in the salary line of one position or something.
right, we aren't cutting a position.
Okay. I guess I'd ask why.
Yep.
Because you said you were going to go from like 18 to 21 kids per class this year to 18 to 24, so it looks like you're going to have more next year, but you're actually losing students, so how come?
More per class.
I know, but if you have
Right.
more per class, you have 120 going out the door,
Right.
90 coming in, you're going to have more per class, but you're not cutting a teacher.
Yeah,
You're not
let
cutting
me,
any-
oh.
That doesn't add up.
right, I think it's a special education, a shift to, we talked about last night at the WARE board meeting.
Was I listening?
No, I think you hadn't got there yet. We were talking about actually, there's a program within Center Woods that we're going to staff shifting to meeting those needs. So, yeah.
All right,
It's an
all right,
excellent presentation if you want to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
okay,
Understanding.
fair enough.
Christine Heath,
Thank you.
Chair of the Ware School Board. So adequacy and revenue is a part of the whole picture that we don't generally talk about this early, but it's not great. And I'm going to have Chris talk about the not great stuff, because why not?
Jump in front of the speeding bus.
Jackie took my joke. So I'm I have done this presentation with all the school boards at this point in our district around these adequacy changes, and so I'll kind of just do the same kind of talk that I did there. So if you've heard it before, I apologize. So the first part of the document that you're looking at, if you're not looking at it, it's got the Christmas colors on it there. The first part you see there is our statewide education tax funds. These are funds that are raised locally on your tax bill. It's the portion that you see that says state education tax as opposed to local education tax, and so this is not controlled by us or where. It's done through the state's calculation and comes out of the tax bill accordingly. And so we don't particularly want this number to go up. We'd rather the other numbers on this page to go up. But in this case, Ware is going to raise $30,165 more as a town, and that will be distributed mostly to our school district, and there's going to be a decrease overall at John Stark School District. Keeping in mind that those two numbers don't tie, because Henniker becomes involved in that calculation. So that's the statewide education tax. We're going to get a little bit more money there. Flowing into the middle of the page, this grant here is called the Hold Harmless Grant. So at the beginning of the last biennium state budget, there were actions taken to increase adequacy for schools, but in that process they discontinued a portion of the adequacy grant called the stabilization grant. The stabilization grant was something that was of great benefit to Ware, and so what they did at that time was they gave us a grant within that calculation to make it so that we stayed at the estimate that they had provided us prior to the state budget passing. So if we, in that year, if they projected that we were going to get $3 million, but the new calculation that they came up with was going to be that we were going to get $2 million, say, they put the $1 million back so that we got the projection that they had provided us prior to that process happening. So that's kind of the language around hold harmless. They were holding us harmless from that change. I don't know if I spoke to it at the Finance Committee 2 years ago. I know I did at the boards, but from there, the state will decrease this. They will decrease this grant by 20% every 2 years until it's gone. So what you see in the middle of the page is the first 20% decrease. Yes.
Is this money that the schools came to depend upon and you just assumed would always be there as opposed to budgeting that it wasn't going to be there and you had it when you needed it?
The revenue that comes in is meant to support the needs of the school.
So you depended on this?
I think that's something that I answer to that would be an opinion, I think.
Because without it, this is all gonna come back on the taxpayer,
Yeah,
Oh, definitely.
correct.
which means you were depending on it from the state instead of budgeting without it and trying to run a budget
No,
without
we
it.
have to budget expenditures separate from revenue, and so what we're presenting to you is the expenditures, and that's what we have to get approved by the voters. Separate from that, the revenues, how we're going to pay for it, is what we share during every, presentation. And that's that our tax impact is gonna look quite different this year than it has in the past. And which is why we wanted to make sure that you were all aware of this.
So as a town, in this portion of the calculation, there's a loss of $619,000. Again, just in this part of the calculation, this is spread over both school districts and Ware. That number is just at the Ware level. Flowing into the bottom chart, you can see that the final number, the number that we actually get in checks from the state, is a decrease of $694,000, basically $695, and that's spread out over the two school districts, where school district is losing the $462, and John Stark is losing the $235,000, $462,000 for people that don't have it in front of them.
Is there some reason why those two numbers don't add?
Again, it's the change of Hennecker impacting the numbers in the Stark calculation.
Thank you.
I tripped over that myself, and I said, oh, I gotta figure out what that is.
Okay, so to make it clear for me, the town of Ware is going to have to come up with this amount of money.
Essentially, it's being shifted from state taxation to local taxation.
What does this figure look like to the town of Ware per person, per household, per thousand?
We don't know that until, like, that'll be part of our budget public hearing presentation.
Because if he's already got this figure, you have to have already an idea on this.
We don't know what our budget is yet, right? Like, this is part of what we do when we present a public hearing. I mean, it's a lot.
$75 per man, woman, and child.
Per thousand or just a flat $75?
If it's allocated among the 9,300 people that live in Ware,
That's not how it will happen, right?
No, because
Not that
children
many,
don't pay
but
this.
it's
It'll be on
more,
property owners, right?
60, yeah,
Right.
probably 6,000,
How much?
less than 9,000. You can't include everybody. To be realistic.
Correct.
Yeah.
So will this affect the total budget numbers that you've shown us here, which you said were bottom line number?
Because they are two separate processes, right? We do our expenditures
Yep.
and then our revenue. And, you know, the revenue, makeup of the revenue is different, you know, based on our adequacy calculation. And this is,
So,
that number, that calculation and what goes into that, and stabilization grants and other grants changes each year. And so this is just, it's changing, not in our favor.
so even if the budget were flat year to year, because we're getting less revenue from the state, local property taxpayers
Costs us
have
more.
to pay more.
Yes.
correct. And staying on the financial side, to Zach's point earlier, there's a lot to read up on this process currently out there.
That's if you assume that the budget stays flat, right?
Consider your default budget, right, okay? So
Yeah.
your default budget is, there's a rule for how we calculate the default budget.
Right,
None of those rules are dependent upon how much adequacy aid we receive from the state.
right.
Chris, are there other revenue sources besides state aid?
We have a.
Food and other things?
Yeah, we have a whole, I'm sure you're familiar, we have a page of revenues that we present during public hearing that range from these two sources. We get the special education aid that we spoke of earlier, so whatever we project that to be funded as, we project that on the revenue page. We have Medicaid to schools, which is a
Any
similar.
major changes,
I
positive or negative?
I don't anticipate any other major changes. I would say that I still need to look at special ed aid and see, so what I projected last year was quite low for special ed aid, and we actually came in a fair amount higher, even though they funded it at that 67% we spoke of earlier. So that was actually very positive when we set the tax rate, that helped the tax rate not go further. And so I have to work through what do we think we have for student need that will be reimbursable, and then find 67% of that to make sure that we can ballpark that correctly.
I know you usually present this at public hearings, but for us, we're talking about this now, and I know you're working on figures, but it would be helpful to us to have this before you go there, because this is gonna affect a lot about how we look at things.
And honestly, that's why we wanted to make sure that this portion of it, that is the biggest change, was presented tonight. We wanted to make sure that, this, in all of our school board meetings, this is the portion that no one had anything to say, because it's quite unfortunate, so.
But we
And
still need to know
respectfully,
the other
Lori,
things, so we need to see more of
respectfully,
this.
we've pushed this up, and I appreciate going through the whole budget process with you all, but this used to be a January
Yes.
meeting, and so we're coming
Well, we
as the
appreciate that.
sausage is being made versus with it totally done, and so, we're doing the best we can to have what we have, so we can have the revenues after the public hearing.
Chris, I missed something here. On the hold harmless number, 619, and then the state adequacy, the 694, are those added together for the impact?
No.
No.
So what you're seeing there is hold harmless, that portion of the calculation is going down. And then, so the spreadsheet that we get provided from the state of New Hampshire, it kind of flows from left to right. And so they say, okay, these are your calculations based on enrollment and free and reduced and ELL learners. This is the number you're owed there. And then you get your hold harmless grant, and then that number goes higher, and so then that's what gets to the bottom chart there. So the bottom chart is the
That's the only
finalization.
number I need to worry about.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
the hold harmless grant is not a calculation, or
Okay, I'll ignore
a
it.
check in its own.
Okay. And the 30,165, where it says statewide education tax, that's, when we get our tax bill, it has a statewide education, it has
Yeah.
a dollar something. That 30,000 is actually, we're gonna have to pay, that's going up then,
Yeah,
by that amount over the NAB or whatever.
That-
Small amount, but before, we always used to say, hey, we'll just carry that number forward. Now we kinda know what that
Yeah.
number's gonna do,
so that,
so we can add that into our calc.
so that there is the portion that the state of New Hampshire funds their responsibility through the taxpayers.
Small potatoes Anyway, compared to the one down below. Okay.
Yeah, so for us, like, so that, as far as how the sausage is made, that top portion comes in a check from the town. It's not ever, it's called state, it never goes to the state and then comes back.
Okay.
We get a check, if we get a check of cash flow of 500,000, we divide it up between the two buckets, local assessment and statewide education tax.
So taxpayers in Ware are going to have to spend an extra $30,000 on the statewide education tax.
Yep.
And they are going to receive $695,000 less than they did last year.
Right.
Correct.
So the impact is adding those two numbers together?
Well, this is why we were talking about waiting until January. So we have other rods and levers with new revenues, but if you're talking about those two things.
Yes.
Yes, those are contemplated. They are definitely moving in the wrong direction. Yes,
But it's the combination of the two,
yes.
not just the 694.
Yeah, that's the full story right there.
Yeah.
665,000.
About 3 plow trucks. I always use that analogy.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, well.
Plus on top of everything else. we need.
Started this whole process, and if you ever knew you weren't gonna pay that back, you're out of your gourd. 1999, they started the adequacy ad, and they reduced your property taxes, because you got the state money. Whoever thought that was gonna be eternity, you're out of your mind. State never does that. They took away the matching retirement, take it away. So they're gonna eventually put it all back on you anyway. And if you thought you were gonna live that way, that's crazy. Just my 2 cents. They reduced it then, in 1999. And we've lived that way because they've given you money back. You always paid for it before adequacy, and then shut down. It's just reality sets in now.
there anything else?
No.
from your end?
I think that was the completion of our presentation.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I suppose, Jackie, we might, well, your public hearing is on for Ware and John Starko, the 14th, 15th, right?
We are Wednesday, Thursday for Ware and John Stark, so 15th and the
15th,
16th. Yep,
January 15th and 16th.
yes.
So we have a meeting on the 22nd. If we have questions and need you to come back in, would you be available for that? Probably not as long as what you've done tonight, obviously, but if there's any, we have,
Yes, I should be able to do that.
so we'll be deliberating our recommendations during that meeting and the one before that, but the one before that is the day before the public hearing, so. The 22nd would be our chance to kind of have another pass at you.
Great,
Something to look forward to.
yes.
Talk to PD in their vests.
Okay, it is on my calendar.
Yeah,
You'll
I'll
confirm?
confirm, but,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
up to the committee, but
Thank you.
thanks very much. All right. So does the committee want to talk about this at this point, or you've been, Doing
We've
some-
asked for a lot of other information.
right, we have to wait?
Until we get that and have a chance to look at that,
Mhm.
I think we ought to hold off.
Yep,
I agree.
okay. Our next meeting is on January 14th. And we have to, actually Naomi's gonna come in that night and give us the update on the town. There's a couple of contracts that hadn't been finalized yet. The selectmen are still working with their departments. So we're gonna end up talking about town that night. And then we can talk about the schools as well, amongst ourselves.
That's what date would that be?
That's the
14th.
Well, it's gonna be the 14th.
And then after that's the 22nd.
22nd. And we have the 28th reserved if we need it. That's running really, really close
Yeah.
to the warrant being posted and all that, so. But we still have to come up with recommendations and amongst ourselves and vote. So the 28th is probably not a realistic date, but we have it just in case. So we're gonna have really two meetings to discuss and for the most part vote on town and the schools. So. It's gonna be a lot.
It's gonna be a long meeting.
It's weird with the holidays, being in the
Yeah.
middle of the week, it
Yeah.
throws some things off, but,
Well, it's like you say, you bring it all together and then see what the grand total is to
Yeah.
start, to be able to say, here's, like you have that table where you just go boom,
Yep.
boom, boom, here's a tax impact, and if everything says yes, here's the news.
right,
If you say no on everything, here's that news, and then we kind of say,
how do we wanna balance?
what, just trying to look out for needs and sensitivity to the taxpayers, and then each taxpayer is gonna be able to make his own decision. And some are more well-off than others, and some may say, everything's fine. Others may say, gee, I kinda like what the finance committee said, or they may say, I don't like what they said either, and I'll go over here. So, the main thing is to give them the options and explain, if you vote this way, this is what the impact is gonna be.
Right,
Does anybody know what the cost of living is?
the increase?
Yep,
I don't,
because that has a lot to do when you start looking at raises.
Between 2.5 and
What is it?
3.
I thought it was, 2.7, I thought I had heard that, I don't know if that's right or not, but
are you using
2.7?
social security COLA increases or just generic?
Look at the Brockton number, whatever the heck that is. I
Yeah.
thought that was hovering right around 3.
Yeah.
That's the number, the metric they use for our neck of the woods.
social security increases in the twos, right?
Right.
2.7,
lower.
I thought, yeah.
Which is gonna affect a lot of people. If the things need to change.
Behind all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Nobody is doing it.
I'm sorry. I've got the worksheet prepared,
Good.
but it's all last year's numbers. So I'm gonna take what we know now this week, put everything in there, I'll send a copy out to everybody. You get a first cut look at it. Obviously, things are changing.
Yeah.
But when they finalize, one of the challenges we have is that the public hearings are all gonna be kind of in the middle of our next two meetings. So
Great.
we've got a meeting, we can only work with what we have, but
Yeah.
Well, the deliberatives are the more important anyway, that's why they can make the changes. It's public hearings, sometimes they don't get good attendance at.
right, yeah, we can only go with what we have at that time.
But we don't have to issue any formal statement.
Not for public hearing.
No.
No,
We
But-
attend and listen like everyone else, and we're not asked to participate, and we don't participate as a committee.
right, but we have two meetings in January to discuss and vote on recommendations, on information that could still change a little bit. Not talking about the deliberatives, I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about public hearing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Boards could decide to come back and shave off some more money if they, you know, probably not likely, but, so,
You don't have your net assessed evaluation either.
no, that's not done yet?
So
Okay.
I could get it to them too, so we can have the same tax impact.
Is it calculated and we just don't have it, or is it,
I haven't calculated it yet.
oh, okay.
I haven't worked my magic yet.
What's that, the NAV?
Yeah.
NAV?
The net assessed value,
Yeah,
that
net assessment,
determines
NAV,
the,
it was like,
how many dollars per thousand.
yeah,
Going up
that's,
Can't do anything without that.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, 0.5% as usual. No decision made yet.
So whatever spreadsheet, worksheet we have set up, well, we can't really do anything until we have
You
that.
have that, yeah.
That determines tax
Need
rate.
the denominator.
So, those January meetings could be long nights, those two January. We have to get a lot done in two meetings.
Question for Naomi.
Yes,
Will you be coordinating with the school district so that everybody's using the same net asset?
yeah,
value?
she just
Do a
mentioned
year.
that, yeah. Yeah, there's one number that gets plugged in everybody's.
I'd like to make you have two numbers and see which one's right.
Anybody have any, oh, I'm sorry,
I have a question. So are those at 6:30 as well?
yeah,
If they're gonna be long, would anybody object to starting at 6 just to get a little bit earlier start? Since we're anticipating long meetings.
I think we should probably ask Naomi first if it's physically possible.
What?
Jessica's asking if we could start our meetings in January at 6 PM instead of 6:30.
What? Or both of them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All three.
Well, the 28th is on kind of floated.
yeah.
Because there's gonna be a lot of discussion.
Yeah, I don't care. Tuesday, you take me away from my day off, but you owe me forms.
We'll bring donuts and coffee.
I don't do donuts.
Oh, yeah,
All
okay.
exhausted trying to figure this out.
Yeah, we can do, we haven't done the calendar yet, I'll move them to 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any
I
objection to
still
that?
like- No.
No.
don't have to worry about it.
Oh, good idea.
Sounds like a great idea.
Would you be able to make it, Mr. Ruffman?
I will adjust my schedule, so I will be here.
Okay.
In other words, I'll tell the assigner I'm not available,
Thank you.
Even though he's upped your pay.
even though he what?
Upped your pay.
I'm never, I am gonna take a lot of grief over this.
You just started.
So you have Tuesday the 14th at 6, Wednesday the 22nd at 6, and Tuesday the 28th at 6 if you need it.
Tentatively, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, potentially. Okay.
Who is not here tonight? And our,
Elizabeth?
yeah,
Mike Kosky, Elizabeth,
yeah. It's not our call, but if we get people who haven't attended enough
Can
I
they
mean-
vote?
meetings to be able to vote, I don't know if we've reached that stage, but,
for them to not vote, you said?
well, I'm not saying they can vote, but I know in other years when people haven't been here, they haven't heard the presentations,
Right?
and Are they a part of the committee? Basically, are they a part of the committee or not?
Right. That's up to the committee with the conjunction with the moderator. Yep. Committee can make recommendations on that. Somebody else, Carrie Yuri's not here as well, so Carrie,
That's right.
Mike,
Right, yeah.
and Elizabeth.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, Carrie's been at all the other meetings, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's three. We have,
I gotta get Maria's spelling on her last name. Oh, wait a
We're
minute.
not meeting the week of the 6th of January? There's like a full week we're not meeting.
we don't have anything set up.
Okay.
Is that available, Naomi, at all?
What's that?
The week of the 6th? The meeting of-
No.
Huh?
Do you wanna do Friday night, but you're
Oh,
on
yeah,
your
there was
own?
no space.
Okay.
This is the schedule.
6 new boards this year.
You think I can see that?
Not.
If you're gonna do it on yourself, I'll show you how to do it.
Saturday also is available.
I'll give you a crash course on how to run it, actually, Tom knows how to run it, so.
Are we ever gonna get to the stage where the room upstairs and the room down here, we have two meetings at the same time going on?
I'm not gonna live that long, so,
You're not what?
I'm not gonna live that long.
There's your answer.
Well, they were talking about it at one time. They were talking about having that,
We've talked about it, but he
some
can't
of us are.
volunteer to do anything.
oh, okay.
You know, get somebody to do RFP, somebody.
No, I was just asking,
Yeah.
you know.
There are videos on YouTube of meetings up in that room, and it looks like somebody manually recorded it with their camera
We did,
and uploaded it.
we did,
Yeah, before we had,
and acoustics is terrible.
is it? Yeah. It was the finance committee meeting up there. Yeah,
Okay.
I think Laura was in one of them.
It has been taught, but.
We used to bring treats to the long
Okay,
meetings.
I'll stop talking about it.
Is there any other discussion people would like to take up regarding the town budgets?
We're still waiting on those, right?
Naomi's gonna talk to us on the 14th with the pre-public
We hope
hearing.
we can be final.
Pre-public hearing final, yeah. And for the schools, the contracts are the only CIP, non-budget warrant articles? But we didn't mention anything else?
I believe so. It's possible that there's something to go into one of the trusts, but that isn't something that we have finalized.
Yeah, we're talking about, we're bouncing around the idea at John Stark right now. We're right in that phase where.
Oh, you can take money from the excess and put it into the trust?
Yeah, so
We had a pretty in-depth conversation during our last board meeting around capital improvements. Our SEY Resource Planning Committee met Monday, thank you. And that was one of the topics of discussion there as well. So yes, in short, we can take money that is currently in surplus at the end of a year and suggest that as one of the warrant articles to fund a capital improvement fund or pledge to a capital improvement fund, which is designed to go just to the projects on our capital improvement plan, which at the high school has been, for the last several years, the replacement of the roof project.
Zach, you had that other thing, fund that was approved a couple of years ago, and
Yeah, it's the,
and that one there sits, and then you
Yes.
have an opportunity, if you draw down
Yes.
from it, and you can replenish into that
exactly.
as well, right?
So we're very aware that that's in play, and it serves really two functions as far as, board members are concerned. One is, or three, I guess you could say. One is for emergency funding, so if, speaking of special ed, if you have a very, very expensive out-of-district placement or two, that winds up sapping your entire special ed fund, which we also have, right? You can use, I'm just citing an example of an emergency, that's one such thing that we could use the fund for. Or we wind up using it for leveling out tax rate. Now, the challenge with leveling out tax rates is kind of echoes our previous conversation here, or fits in with our previous conversation. It becomes what we colloquially referred to as a tough act to follow. So let's say if you take the $200,000 or $300,000 we have set there, use it in this adequacy shortfall, you haven't really eliminated the shortfall. You've delayed it for a year. Okay, right now.
Did you draw down anything out of that last?
I don't remember if we, I don't think so. Yeah.
And it's capped at a certain level.
It is, and it's a function of a percentage of the total valuation of the town and so forth. But yes, we or the two communities, pardon me, Henniker and Ware combined. But just to be completely transparent, that is a conversation that we're currently having, given the adequacy piece that's there, but also the capital, projects that we need to undertake as well. Like we're for all practical purposes, call it like 3/5 of the way through the roof projects at John Stark. Okay, right, and we're probably leaning towards delaying, for a year or maybe two, given the newness of the roofs that are still there. For instance, okay, right, this is all stuff we can hear in our minutes and from our recordings at the previous board meetings. That said, we have other capital projects that we've been putting off because we've been trying to get the that big project through the works here. So I know it's a long-winded answer. We may have a warrant article or two that we talk about that. We galvanize those at the public hearing in January. Okay.
Is there an ETA on the teacher contract being finalized? Is there a deadline for that? John Stark?
It has to be finalized by the time petition warrant articles, so the drop dead date is, I think, the beginning of the week of public hearings. It's going to be done this week, I think.
Oh, it'll be done, okay, so.
Yes.
Better question would have been, when do you think it will be
Yes.
ready for our consumption?
I think by the end of the week.
Okay.
The school board side of getting that done is very easy. It's like trying to get all the teachers in one place to ratify
Yeah.
their end of it. That is the challenge.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Anything?
I sent out the minutes for the last meeting. Nobody's had a chance to read them yet, so we can do that the next meeting.
Yeah, that was quick, so we'll delay that.
Yeah.
All right. If that's it, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn?
Lori? Second. John? Jessica?
Doesn't matter.
Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on January.